The one thing that every single person should do for their gut health is something that brings them joy. It is different for every one of us, but if you can have that one thing that
Mm-hmm.
sparks a sense of joy every
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
please do it. We are having a problem with our disconnected to nature. People aren't getting out enough, putting their feet in the grass or looking at the moon, feeling the sunshine hit their face. So getting out in nature more often, if not every day, I think is huge.
Welcome to the Too Curious MD podcast. I'm Dr. Alya Ahmad.
And I'm Dr. Alya Ahmad.
With the wisdom from holistic, alternative, and these conventional medicine, we are here to challenge the status quo.
We're curious about the connectivity and complexity between diverse fields of knowledge as they relate to consciousness, chronic illness, mental health, resilience, and beyond.
Learning more about the art and science of healing, or listening to stories of extraordinary healing. You're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Too Curious MD podcast, where medicine is more than science. It's story, art, connection, and integration. This is the space for the curious, and we're going to dive in today and entice you, especially about and introduce you to Dr. Emily Wolbers, who is going to talk about the gut-brain axis, stress, the science of healing. A little bit about Dr. Emily Wolbers. I hope I said that correctly. She is a naturopathic doctor specializing in gastrointestinal health and gut-brain connection at QC Natural Health, recognized as one of the top naturopathic doctors in the United States. That must be an accolade. Wow. Dr. Emily bridges evidence-based medicine with practices rooted in mindfulness, yoga, and nervous system healing. She's been teaching yoga and meditation since 2013 and lectures internationally on mind-body medicine, helping patients understand how stress physiology, which is very, very important, the vagus nerve, inflammation, hormones, and emotional health are deeply intertwined. And we're excited to have her because our audience is often asking us those same questions, and it's always great to have an expert as well to share to and ask those questions that we get to ask as well. So we'll be exploring the science of the gut-brain axis, why chronic stress silently reshapes the body, and what yoga may have to help us with healing centuries of modern medicine couldn't do. So this episode is for anyone who's ever been told their symptoms are just stress and knew that there had to be more to the story. So thank you for being here, Emily. Take it
Thank you
away.
so much for having me, you both. Oh, and I love your intro on how you're blending medicine as art and science and stories. And I think that's a huge part of it and sometimes gets missed in modern medicine or fast-paced medicine.
Yeah.
So tell us, Emily, let's start with your story. What got you interested at this intersection? It's clear that resonates with you as well. And so, what's your kind of journey to becoming a healer?
And I do want to stress
Mhm.
that the gut-brain connection, like why specifically just that? That seems to be your
Ooh,
expertise.
yes, yes. So I think I'll answer both of these questions like by weaving them in because I'll always be a yogi first. I've been doing yoga for so long and I've been teaching for so long. And even before medical school, I've been teaching yoga. And I knew that I wanted to help people and knew that I wanted to help people in a medical way as well. And because of the yoga being this foundation for nervous system regulation and mindfulness, being able to cut through the noise of what goes on between the ears every day, it's like, okay, this is gold, but people want help with their body too. So let's bridge that gap. And I started to study dietetics and nutrition, have dabbled in Ayurveda and bringing those art and sciences together. Then I was hungry for more. Okay, this is good. We've got the mind, we've got the nutrition. Now what else? And to me, the bridge between the mind and nutrition is the gut. And so this gut-brain connection is seeming like a platform and a platter where people can enjoy nutrition, enjoy mindfulness, enjoy the nourishment of where our food is coming from and how it heals the body. And so the gut-brain connection, I could talk about it all day and all of those facets.
Why do you think so many people are beginning to just realize their digestive symptoms are kind of connected to stress and emotional health? Like, why hasn't this happened already? Why is it taking so long for people to recognize this, including doctors, I would say?
I agree. I agree. It is taking a long time. And people, I just 2 months ago, I was at an event and I was looking at people's heart rate variability. You're probably familiar with this, and a lot of your listeners probably are too. But heart rate variability is how quickly the heart rate changes. And ideally, when we have high health and our nervous system is strong and adaptable, we have high heart rate variability, which is kind of counterintuitive. But basically, we want to be able to steer quickly. So if we get stressed, the stress comes on and then we can de-stress quickly. And so at this event, I was measuring people's heart rate variability. They come in, we hook them up to the monitor, and I was surprised how stressed people are. Just seeing by their data, looking at their heart rate variability, they didn't seem that they were agitated. They didn't tell me they were stressed. But then looking at their body's response, people are stressed out. And I think we live in a fast-paced world. We are constantly being inundated with information and news and notifications and, oh, I've got to do this. And, oh, there's another text message, another email. And it quietly just nags at our nervous system. And I think because humans have had to adapt so quickly to this fast-paced world, our bodies are not able to keep up with that. And it's taking some time for people to realize we need strategies to help with this new age world that we're exposed to and living in. And I think that's part of where the gap is.
Yeah, it makes sense. We are kind of inundated more so than, just seeing, we've both been in practice over 25 years now, and you can see that in the way patients come, right, to the center, to what complexity it's become. Children, the risk factors, the exposure that they're seeing earlier and earlier, we're seeing more worse conditions that would have taken years to occur in the same context. So it does make sense.
And I love your storytelling about it. Like the image you just drew is that reality has gotten faster than our cardiovascular system, for example, is adapted to. We're not used to making such sudden changes. It's like taking somebody who, is pretty good on a bike or whatever, and then you're like kind of telling them like, hey, go ski down this hill and just do it like in a day.
Yes. Yes.
And the nervous system is just like, wait a minute. And then there's that chronic stress, like you talked about, and like that constant state of having to defend against that and the toll that takes. So tell us more, like, how do you kind of see this heart? And I think it's a genius idea to check your heart rate variability as kind of like a spot check. And I've been seeing that a lot of the trackers are using it now. And that's such a great kind of tool, because then that builds self-awareness in the moment, because the person can see, right?
Yes. Yes. It is a biofeedback machine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're surrounded by it.
And even just seeing that can be so empowering of, look at that. My body needs some support. And Dr. Simi, like you were saying with the bicycle to the skiing, that's such a great analogy, because the context shifting that humans do every day, it is enormous. Context shifting from even just thinking about your last half hour of, were you working, checking an email, checking another email, scrolling on Instagram, seeing a new reel pop up and a new reel pop up, do the laundry, help feed your family. Like that can be somebody's 30 minutes. And it could have so many context shifts and then make that throughout an entire day. That is exhausting for the nervous system.
Absolutely.
And so seeing these types of feedback where we can see it on heart rate variability, or I love using data collection to help people get in tune with their bodies. So I think in some ways it would be so nice if we could all just go out to a farm and live off the land with no notifications for a couple of weeks, but that's not accessible. And using these biofeedback things can help us to get in tune with our body, even in this fast-paced world.
So
Yeah,
for our
absolutely.
audience, can you explain what is a good heart rate variability and why does it have to vary?
Yes. So heart rate variability, the higher the better. The highest that you can have is 100%, or 100% of the time you're having these good heart rate variability numbers. So a health marker is considered anything over 86. So anything between 86 and 100 is a really great heart rate variability. Now, with the higher heart rate variability, that would mean, and I was thinking maybe for a different context, I can share some pictures with you so that we can put them in. But a high heart rate variability has this smoothness to it as well. So there's high waves and then there's a valley that comes right after it, and it's very smooth. So we can see this nice sine wave. Whereas if people are more stressed, their numbers might not be as high and it'll be more jagged. It looks like this. Like it might still have that same shape, but it's very, very touchy. And this means that the nervous system is not very clear on, is it okay to be calm right now? Am I in a safe place right now? Can I relax? Or do I need to be on edge? Do I need to respond quickly? Am I going to have to fight, flight, or freeze? And it's an interesting nervous system response because with high heart rate variability, there's abundant clarity. When the body's relaxed, the nervous system's relaxed. When the body is stressed, the nervous system's stressed. And it has these very clear panels.
But it's still, when the biomarkers are checked, it's usually is averaged out, right, over the
It is
day.
averaged out.
So then that fluctuation may not be fully representative of the actual experience, I'm sure.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah. So, and this is where it gets a little bit confusing because 100% or like 100 heart rate variability doesn't mean that it's high all the time. It means that there was a lot of variability and it was able to respond. With some of these tools, especially the ones that you can look at throughout an entire day, it will average your entire day and see there was good responses all day. And then if you're doing shorter bursts, like with these training tools, it will teach more in the moment of how your body's responding when you're breathing this way or when you're just coming to sit down. Or sometimes I'll even encourage people to think of something stressful so that they can see what happens in their body when that happens.
Correct. Yeah, definitely the mind. Now let's connect this to the body and to the gut. Does your gut see the story of what your experience before your mind has?
Ooh, I love this. So I think you're bringing up an important point that science can't answer yet because the gut has the number on this in the science keeps changing, but between
And the
3
reason why I asked that question
Yeah.
has to do with the neuronal connections that the gut is making to the brain. Most of them are going towards the brain. So
Yes.
80%, they say, right?
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what I was just going to mention. The gut has 3 to 500 million nerve cells.
Yeah.
So all of these nerve cells, and exactly like you said, most of them are going from the gut up. Do we know that because all of these nerve cells are there and they're so present and most of that signaling goes upward, is there something that's happening in the body, in the gut, before we can even perceive it in the mind? And based on the science, I would say yes. However, it's not something that we can exactly measure.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've heard this said like, if you have like a kind of like a different eating pattern, you're craving more sugar, you're craving more salt, and it's kind of hormone dependent, right, throughout your cycle, that your gut bacteria, if it's measured throughout that cycle, is shifting and changing. And so it's like you're basically being directed by your gut to go out and get the food
Yeah.
that is going to make that bacteria thrive. And it's happening on a kind of genetic translational level. that we are not aware of, and is very environmental, is very, like you said, it's in the body. The signals are coming in from the body. The heart rate variability is a really quick test that tells you how resilient the body is to the signals that are coming from it. Because yeah, Alya, you're right. It's so different. Like if you have a stressed out person and they're on vacation and, all of a sudden they're kind of like relaxed, maybe their heart rate variability will maybe improve a little bit, but then they don't have the reserve that maybe somebody who exercises regularly or is sleeping well and stretches and, is really taking care of paying attention to their nutritional needs, because their body's just going to be better able to withstand. And therefore, and I think what we're talking about here is resiliency. So there's a weirdness of the gut where things connect. And then so go ahead and tell me what this pattern type is that you're asking questions about, because I'm interested about some of these questions, because it seems like we're starting to go and find typologies out there. Like there's there's some patterns out there that are emerging as you work with different people. So I'm so excited to hear what you've discovered.
It's true. And I love decoding patterns of what do we see in the body, what are we seeing in the nervous system, and how can we use that as information. Dr. Simi, what you were saying with the diet, it only takes 2 days of dietary changes for microbiome changes to happen. And that is just wild to me. So think about people who try a carnivore diet. Like that will change the microbiome. And then they go to eating a plant-based vegan diet. That will change the microbiome. And it only takes 2 days. And what we're seeing with these patternings is sometimes the issue, like the root cause of something going on, is truly in the microbiome. It is truly in the gut alone. And so if that's the case, I want to always make sure, is it those nerve cells speaking as well? Do people's digestion get worse when they're stressed out? And so we're seeing if there's an intertwining there. And because the gut and the brain are so intimately connected, I want to make sure I'm doing due diligence of looking at somebody's whole person. You can't just look at the gut alone. Got to look at the brain and the nervous system too. So is there something with the microbiome? Is there something with this mind-body connection with the nervous system? Hormones, this is a whole other ball of wax. I love helping people in hormonal transitions. So people who are in perimenopause and people who are full on in menopause, people who are coming off of pregnancy or breastfeeding, those kind of hormonal transitions where something shifted in the hormones and they're feeling it in their digestion or they're feeling it in their nervous system. And that could be another pattern type where we look to decode what's going on. Where did this come from? How did this happen? And then the fourth type. So if you take the quiz, which it's a good way to like start to see some of the patterns. The fourth type is coming down to the mitochondria and energy. And so when people have noticed if their energy is constantly tanking at 3 o'clock, maybe there's something to go with the adrenals or the way that the body uses energy. Mitochondria being that battery of the cell, that energizer bunny, those are so rich in the digestive system that if we heal the mitochondria, it can help with the whole system, help with digestion, energy, and mood.
I also want to bring in the polyvagal theory and just the vagus nerve into this. The largest nerve, the connector nerve, the chakra nerve, the nerve that knows everything and is, by dualistic nerve. It's a parasympathetic and sympathetic system. You work with the vagus nerve, I'm sure, every day because just your work. What do you wish people would know more about that they're not getting from their doctor from social media about the vagus nerve and this connection that this vagus nerve has from the gut to the brain?
Yeah, the vagus.
Great questions, Alya.
It's a great
I love them.
And the vagus nerve is a powerhouse.
It's a question I want to know. That's why I'm asking.
That's a good question.
The vagus nerve is such a powerhouse. And I wish that people knew how simple it is to heal the vagus nerve and help it to be healthy and strong. We can do weightlifting for our vagus nerve every day. And the weightlifting are simple things like gargling, humming, singing. Every day I sing. And before this podcast, I was nervous. So I was singing because I knew it was going to be good for my vagus nerve. These kinds of things are like a training tool for the vagus. So it makes the vagus nerve healthy and strong without being taut, without being too tight. And that is helpful for the heart rate variability as well. Because if the vagus nerve can respond very quickly, just like you said, with it being a parasympathetic nerve, then it can respond in both ways. That can help with the heart rate variability, help with the nervous system. So get singing, get gargling, get humming. That's a big one. Even small things like cold water to the face in the morning, that can be so good for the vagus nerve. And this is something that I wish people would do more. I wish I did more. But walking around barefoot on the grass is very, very grounding and has that quality. And that can even help with the vagal tone too.
Nice. Nice. So, and the vagal tone, you said, what does that mean physiologically?
So thinking about tone of a muscle, even though the vagus nerve it's a nerve, it doesn't work exactly like a muscle, but we want it to be responsive without being overly strained or overly quick to respond. So I think of the vagus nerve as just thinking about like sensitivity and resilience, where I want it to be able to respond quickly, but I don't want it to be so sensitive that it's responding all the time. And so some signs that if your vagus nerve is working well, you will get salivation when you're hungry. Or if you're smelling delicious food, you'll notice saliva start to pool in the mouth. That's a good sign. Even things like when you're getting tired, if you yawn, or if you're getting stressed, you sigh. These are signs that the vagus nerve is healthy and toned. If those signs aren't happening, that might mean that the vagus nerve is a bit weak and it needs to be retoned. Versus the opposite side, if it's too much, then you're getting like tears and wetness, saliva a lot, yawning a lot. That could be a sign that, oh, it's too fired up, too much acetylcholine.
So here we are talking about, so what are some of the tests that you run, let's say, on the gut, or, some of the data that you kind of bring together? Because I know that you're talking about personalization, and that's one of the things that we're really interested in is, the N of one, Alya, that you talk about, which is that every person is very particular to their story, to their life history, their ancestry, what they're carrying, right? And I'm curious because I think because now we have more data, we have this ability to kind of tell a different story, or unearth the story that's been kind of trapped in the body that the person themselves may not know about. It's like, oh, I've got these eating patterns because I grew up X in this place and this is what was available and that's what I eat. But now I live in this place and that's completely maladapted. And this is, like there's just so much of food knowledge. So I just love that you talk about dietetics, and just, we're learning about these bodies and just how absolutely rich they are in, information, and also just how finely tuned they are in some very interesting ways, like you said, like this vagus nerve. And, just we're just still trying to figure out how it all operates and comes together, and what's driving what and how does this, we're all just kind of explorers. And sometimes I feel like we're all in a dark room with an elephant, right? The blind people. I feel a trunk. I feel a tail.
Yes. The lights are turning on now.
Right. The lights are turning on slowly. The flashlights and now some beam lights and, now we're getting really nitty gritty. And I love that you're bringing it down to the mitochondria because it's about cellular health. And there's a real integrative way that we're understanding because we have to, because our environment is kind of forcing us to.
It's true.
Right? Our food supply, the pesticides, the amount of contamination of our body, mind, gut system, right? Like how many people have leaky gut from just insecticide, in our food? And we're learning more and more that it's been going on. Like just today, I read something about how Driscoll's strawberries in California have been linked to childhood cancer, right? Like this is where we live now, right? So what we're talking about is not just woo. What we're talking about is not just like nice to have. We're actually talking about survival tools.
Yes.
right? Like this is about learning how to have that better heart rate variability for long-term health. Because if you don't, your body's resiliency to withstand some of these toxic exposures, which we know are predictably almost going to happen,
Right.
um, are going to happen, you
Yeah.
know.
Yes.
Like we have the fires here, and last year, we in Pasadena, the air quality index went to like the 500s.
Yeah.
And there are people in India and Delhi that live in the 1000s, and
Mhm.
these are all chemicals that our bodies are withstanding on a daily basis, and it's impacting the
Yes.
microbiome, the gut, the nervous system, the kidneys, the livers, the detoxification systems, the
Yes.
genetic, epigenetics, and all of that. And so, as we are kind of talking about, like, I love that you bring yoga in because I feel like that is really an ancient technology, not ancient, kind of just like a technology that was arrived at not with the brain only, but
Hmm.
with the brain, body, and breath.
Hmm.
So can you just kind of like bring it all together for us?
Yes. And I love to think of the body as a bucket. We have a bucket of all of the things that we come into contact with every day. All of the good, the bad, and the ugly goes in that bucket. And so all of the pesticides, all of the pollution, any food that we put in, any medications, alcohol, drugs, stress, the emails, it all fills the bucket. Our bucket, our body is very resilient. We can handle a lot in that bucket. However, when the bucket gets to be too full, it will start to overflow. And that's when symptoms happen. And so we can think of two strategies. We can either put less in that bucket, so decrease exposure to pesticides and herbicides, eat organic food, decrease stress. Or strategy number two is empty out the bucket. And I like to do a blended approach, but I think that's where yoga can come in so beautifully to help empty out the bucket, where these practices of breath techniques and eating holistically, these are things that help to keep the bucket at a lower fullness. And then in a systematic way, you can do detoxes as well if you want to like open up the whole valve and detox the whole bucket. But
I actually think of that as like almost opening up the like yoga as increasing the size of your bucket, right?
yes,
Like you can't really decrease what's coming at you. You can just hold
just
more
hold
and not be
more.
overwhelmed by it.
That's beautiful.
So I think
Yes.
it's more that resiliency, like what you're talking about is building resiliency.
Right.
So let's say we're talking about this brain fog, right? And I think a lot of people are talking about fatigue, this 3 p.m. crash. What's happening in that gut biome level and energy level in the body that's creating these behaviors that are so predictable
Right.
that you can actually do a questionnaire on your website and figure out
Right.
who you are. So I'm an energy seeker, apparently.
Okay. Okay. So
So
this
tell
is
me what
good.
that is.
This is good. So the 3 p.m. crash,
Mhm,
I wish there was it's if this, then this.
mhm,
Unfortunately, it's not that simple, but fortunately, we're complex humans and
mhm,
we have a lot going on. But I always wonder about adrenals because the
mhm,
adrenals, they're little hats that sit on top of the kidneys. They keep us going.
mhm,
And 2 to 3 p.m. is adrenal shutoff time. And
mhm,
so if fatigue is continually happening at 2 to 3 p.m., I first think adrenals. And with adrenals, this ties into the hormone sphere because, especially with people in perimenopause and menopause, the adrenals have been working so hard for decades.
yeah.
You've gone through your career, you've done your
Mm,
residency, you've been in practice for 25 years, for goodness sakes. Like you've done a lot of giving, and a lot of people who are energy seekers tend to be that archetype where like, they
mm,
give a lot. And so by 3 o'clock, the adrenals are saying, okay, boss,
mhm,
slow down. And so that 3 p.m. crash can often be related to the adrenals.
mhm,
The other piece that I get curious about with data is how is the body using energy? Is by this time of the day, have you used up the fuel that you've been feeding yourself appropriately? And then is there a blood sugar piece that it could be a crash at that? middle of the afternoon time.
Mhm.
I use continuous glucose monitoring with people, and I always encourage people to get curious about what's going on with them too, because that can give pattern information on what's happening at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, I've always been that kind of person, just even since I was a kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I was like a post-lunch crash kid.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So maybe in your unique case, maybe it's more of maybe
But
it's
I think I always also had like obstructive sleep apnea and things like that. So it's like, you know, I think what we forget is that people have had like maybe undiagnosed things, right?
yes.
Alia, what are we seeing on the integrative medicine side for, you know, when we check cortisol, when we check hormones, what are some of the typologies that we're finding when we're seeing these kind of patients?
I think it's variable, I would say. When I check cortisol levels, it's almost like the phenotype. You want to get the history of the phenotype, the fatigue, the anxious, the stressed, the depleted, this kind of getting the history of their experience
Mhm.
and how they're responding to that experience in what way over
Mhm.
time. So based on that, when I'm listening to patients, I'm listening to like, okay, so tell me more about when you feel the worst, right? Which is what you're talking about, the cortisol lull. And if you have a lifestyle, like you're a nurse who's, working late and night shifts, you're never going to
Mhm.
get to that healthy circadian rhythm because it's just wacko,
Mhm.
and then you can kind of hear that and okay, well, they don't even have a lull. They just have lulls all the time and they can't even predict it. And so then the cortisol pattern is going to be off, and you're going to have to get a 24-hour cycle.
Right.
Sometimes you hear about, I just can't get out of bed, you know.
Yes.
That
Mm.
cortisol level is and it correlates easily to
Yes.
that. So and then comes the
And that
inflammatory.
cortisol, just explain a little bit of that. Is that the cortisol is the response of the body to what's happening,
Mm,
or it is a response of the body to the crash itself, right? Cortisol is excreted from the adrenals when it's fight or flight. It's time to like get the heart rate going, get the blood pumping, wake up, get more, you know,
yeah.
energy in there, send your troops in, right? It's kind of like your send your troops in moment. And what happens? Increase sugar, right?
It's so much more complex, I think, than just sugar. It's the interaction of
Right.
so many things.
It
I
is.
mean, gluten has an opioid effect for some people, right?
Oh,
The
wow.
metabolites of gluten have an
Mhm.
opioid effect. So you get lethargic and dull
Mhm.
and withdrawn. I mean, some people, not everyone. But
You know, and
it has to be related.
yep,
It's related to your gut biome, right? What's in your gut?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what you see, Emily, as well?
You know what?
Absolutely.
Let me just put in a little cultural item here. And yes, and we should talk about this because the cultural piece here is that in Bengal, which is where my people are from, there's something that's translates to like rice sleep.
Oh,
And that's something that you know happens to people is after they've had rice because, you know, it's really abundant. It's the largest staple. Everybody eats it and they eat large amounts of it because it's cheaper. And so then they have this like sugar crash right afterwards. And you put that together with like the insulin type that we have, which is kind of like based on the South Asian genetics, which kind of are hyperreactive to you know, sugar because we have had a genome that's kind of been over a couple of centuries with like famines and things like that. So there's like a correlation there of some sort of metabolic syndrome happening because of adaptations that have been passed down that are now in a new environment where those adaptations themselves now have become maladaptations.
yes.
Because put me in an environment with refined sugar and like there's just no way I'm gonna be able to like, you know, and it's really interesting to me this phenomenon, right?
It's so
And
true.
so yeah, so add that on to kind of just like what Alia just asked about. Yeah.
Yes, and both of you bringing up such an important point where it is layers. It's probably a piece of blood sugar, a piece of insulin, a piece of gut biome, and a piece of hormones. And that is one of the reasons why I like to have people look at their patterns because when it comes to healing, or if people have a goal of, I don't want that 3 p.m. crash anymore, then
Yeah.
we need to start pulling at these threads but it's usually not just one thread. It's a gentle nudge and a repatterning by peeling off the
Mhm.
layers. And from an epigenetic standpoint, I love that you brought that story in too.
Yeah, and it's called rice sleep, right? So what we were just talking about is like that 3 p.m. crash is like how it would be if we looked at the patient like, okay, what is your, archetype, or biotype or genotype or phenotype that's kind of like presenting. And I think we're getting closer and closer with a lot of this information of putting together some stories here
Yeah,
that then help us, like illness scripts, right? We're able to put together illness scripts then when we hear somebody's story, we're like, oh, this looks like that illness script. Let me test a few things. Let me confirm my theory. And then off you go. You've got a management plan
yeah,
that's really personalized, well put together, and responsive
yeah.
to the symptoms. So when do you find people are coming to you? Like, what are the typical, when do people say enough is enough? Or, when do they kind of say, all right, I'm going to try everything I can?
Right.
Um,
I'd be curious to hear if this is similar to the type of people that you all see. But
Mhm.
a lot of people that come in to see me, they have done so much already. They have done so much work. They've tried to their thoughts, they're doing everything right. And a lot of times my thoughts too, it's like, oh gosh, you're putting in so much effort without the reaping the fruits of the benefit. And so a lot of times I will want to acknowledge that of you are doing such a great job. This isn't because something's wrong with your body, but instead, let's figure out what is going on. Let's do some digging because if somebody who had an unhealthy lifestyle adopted the things that my patients have done before they come to see me, they would feel better in a day. But these people who have done everything and they're still feeling in shambles, that's the typing that I wanna do some digging to figure out what's the pattern. Is that the type of people that
and what do you find? Yeah. Is that the kind of people that we're seeing as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There is um, and Alya, you can probably speak to this a lot more because, you really do that integrative testing and you're looking at the full genomics and metabolics and things like that. So, once you've kind of got the type, once you've got your data, and I think it can be overwhelming for people. I really want to bring that up is I think this is a lot of new information all at once
Yeah.
for a lot of people who um, kind of look at this time as we don't have a playbook for this.
Yeah.
We really don't have a playbook for what's supposed to happen. How are you, for burnout? We don't have a playbook for
Correct.
perimenopause plus burnout and all the ways in which we've adapted and changed and shifted,
Right.
right? And it is overwhelming. So how do you guide people through the overwhelm in
Yes.
some ways, because they're already exhausted. Like you said, they've tried everything. And I love your like positivity forward aspect of like you have tried everything and that's to your credit
Ugh.
that this is something you really are passionate about and you really want to do.
Yeah, and that's where circling it back to heart rate variability, the vagus
Mhm,
nerve, making sure that that is a foundation of people's healing path
mhm,
because it is overwhelming. It's a lot of information. People just want to feel well. If we're doing one piece at a time, or pulling on one thread and then supporting the nervous system, pull on another thread, make sure the nervous system's
mm,
still supported, then all of a sudden, this 50-ton tanker that's going down the ocean at very rapid speed, then it finally starts to slow down and
mhm,
then we can start to turn it around. So
mm,
reminding people that we're doing one or two things at a time, and it might be one or two new things every week. Like we'll keep the momentum going,
mhm,
but I want people to feel empowered and not overwhelmed. And
mhm,
that nervous system support comes in so handy. I want to remind people that yes, it's soft. It's the soft
mhm.
medicine. It's not as glamorous, but it is the piece that is so important in the healing.
I love that. The soft medicine, because yoga to me feels like the soft medicine. Honestly, I think it was yoga and mindfulness and meditation that really helped me understand and learn about my own and get a sense of kind of agency, like, oh, this is possible.
Can you
Because,
give us an idea of kind of a daily practice you believe everyone, everyone should integrate for their long-term and gut health. Just daily practices.
The
5
one
daily practices, say.
Yes, the one, if I was only to say one, the one thing that every single person should do for their gut health is something that brings them joy. It is different for every one of us, but if you can have that one thing that sparks a sense of joy every
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
please do it.
Okay. That's one.
That's one. That is the
We
number one.
got
Okay.
More.
Get singing. Oh,
singing,
yes.
singing,
Get sing-
humming, gargling.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Every morning.
Every morning. Just like brushing your teeth.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do that.
Great.
I'm committed.
Okay, wonderful. I do think we are having a problem with our disconnected to nature. People aren't getting out enough,
Yeah.
putting their feet in the grass or looking at the moon,
Mm-hmm.
feeling the sunshine hit their face. So getting out in nature more often, if not every day, I think is huge. Sleep has to be in there.
Yeah. Gotta
These are
talk
the
about sleep.
foundation.
How does sleep affect your gut biome?
So
What would you say?
cortisol, for sure, helps with the cortisol piece. And there was a study that came out not too long ago that showed people who chronically got, so the study was 2 weeks in a row, chronically got 6 hours of sleep, had the same cognitive brain function as somebody who went 2 nights in a row with no sleep. But the perceived sleepiness was the same. So sleep is tricky like that because it's not something that everybody perceives every day as, oh, I need more sleep. I'm not getting enough sleep. It's really affecting me. But it's a silent gnaw of taking away brain function, energy, and just cognitive ability. But that is playing a piece into the rest and digest, and the detoxification happens during that deep sleep. So that's when a lot of the microbes would get rebalanced and the gut microbes would stay more regulated.
My number 5 would be you are what you eat.
Yes, I was going to say it has to be food. It has to be food.
I mean, come on. If you're going to eat sugar, you're going to be sugar. You know, you're going to have sugar in your body and it's going to just not know what to do. If you're going to eat high processed food, you're going to feel processed.
Yes.
You know, when you're eating whole foods, you're going to feel whole again. I mean, just going back to nature, right? If you're going to be eating food that are constipating, you're going to be constipated. You're going to be, burdened. So, I mean, the emotional response is also related to the type of food, I would say. Fibrous food make you feel like, cleaner.
It's true.
I mean, in a way, it gives you that sense of the internal feeling of that food. Right? Polyphenol type foods make you feel more colorful, more diverse. Right?
Yes.
I love that.
I mean, you can attach an emotion to the type of food.
I love that.
True.
There is. There's a texture there. There's a layer there. And, we see this, part of what's happening in our nervous systems is when we are in this imbalanced state, when we are in the fight or flight, there's so much energy and, information processing going to survival that we shut down some of the, luxuries, the nice to haves. And what's a nice to have? The ability to fully taste your food.
Yeah.
Or fully see something or feel something. And what we see after we start treatment with, ketamine therapy and people are coming out of their therapy, the first thing they eat after that, they'll sometimes like stop because they're like suddenly in their really rested, cleansed, they can see everything clearly. It's crisp, it's clear, they're feeling it, everything is kind of brand new. They're like, wow, this is the best raspberry I've ever had.
Yes.
They finally is just sitting there tasting it, and you want them to linger with that. You want them to like notice that and do some mindful tasting.
Yes.
So I was going to say when you asked the question, like part of what got me back was like I used a program that would run me through different like meditations, and it was nice. It was like a walking meditation, an eating meditation, a driving meditation, believe it or not, a road rage meditation. It was really the most interesting thing because I would drive in Los Angeles in traffic as my road rage meditation is going, and I'm doing the thing it's telling me to do, which is like with my breath. And it works.
Yes, it works. And that's the
Yeah.
beautiful thing is this medicine is free. It's the one people are thinking, no, I've got to do these big fancy things, but the breath, it's free and it works. I love that story.
What would you say, because you're a naturopathic doctor and we're both MDs, and
Uh-huh.
you've been doing this a long time. We practice integrative medicine. So I believe in the natural and the integrative, and the conventional. What do you think is missing in conventional medicine, for women? Because, we are women. When it comes to their hormonal health or digestive health, what do you feel we could do better in conventional medicine?
Yeah. I think that I'm seeing this a lot in our world, actually, in like the integrative, the functional, and the naturopathic world. I think there is a lot of fear-based medicine where it's the fear that if you're not doing everything right, you're doing it wrong. Or if you're doing this laundry list of things, your health is going to be doomed. And I think that fear alone is causing issues. And it seems like almost every day I'm talking somebody off the ledge of you don't have to get a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. You don't have to avoid every single piece of cocoa because
Yeah.
it might have cadmium in it. And so I think if we can find a middle ground where, yes, we're informed, but we're not injecting fear into our women patients, I think that could do a lot of healing.
Oh, wonderful. That's so
Oh,
true. Because fear is also
fear-based medicine.
toxic, right, to the gut.
Yeah.
Definitely emotions affect the gut, as we talked about. Yeah. And women going through transition and changes in their hormonal health from birth onwards.
Yes.
It's like it starts at birth. Hormonal changes are happening from birth onwards till you die.
Yeah.
And it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And it's so related to how you live and the simple things that
Yeah.
you.
And
I find that a
I
lot
want
of.
to name.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mhm. Oh, sorry. I want to name that the cohort that's going through perimenopause right now is a particularly stressed cohort because we are the Gen X sandwich generation taking care of adult children as well as aging parents, right? So
Yes.
there is that aspect to it. And for all the reasons that we've named, there's like a real need to clarify this, to really like understand, because there hasn't been much data,
Right.
because there hasn't been much, digging, and we're kind of like discovering as we're going. And I think it's, you've demonstrated today kind of like a really, I think we have to approach this with like the right amount of hope and skepticism as well.
Yeah.
They're kind of balanced with, honoring the person, giving them back their agency, like not adding to the healthcare trauma that they're all carrying, because that's also what they're carrying when they say, I've tried everything, is that, I've not been heard, or I have been heard, but nobody really knows in the conventional models how to treat what I have. And so everybody just calls me treatment resistant and
Right.
dismisses me. And, there's that aspect of it. And
Yeah.
it's so easy to then be victimized, right? Or be kind of like poached on. And so I think that's one of the tasks that we bring ourselves to, is like the knowledge base is evolving so rapidly and
Mhm.
it's adding so much richness, but also confusion,
Yes.
because we're not getting enough space to integrate that in our educational spaces. I mean, nowhere are two MDs and an ND having a conversation like this in a medical school or naturopathic school, which we need to be having, right? Interprofessional education needs to be happening at
100%.
a radical scale. And as a person who has been an educator, and I know clinician educator is one of your, roles, we tried that in a medical school where we had OT and we had PA school and we had the dental school talk to each other. And half the time we were managing cultural issues. We were managing hierarchical issues. We were managing issues of power and, liability, and these we're all acculturated a little bit differently
Mhm.
into the healing arts. And I feel like this is, this integrative medicine, alternative medicine, complementary, there's this larger and larger bucket. I think that's another,
Right.
coming back to your bucket analogy, it's like the bucket is enlarging of our society's ability to even talk
Yes.
about yoga, because I discovered yoga when I was in Kansas City, just like went to the Y one day and was like, what is this? And then like 6 months later, I'm like, wow, why is it that I like this so much? I
Yeah.
feel better. And oh, let me discover what this is. And then reading about it and going, what? All of this is here? And I went to 25, I've been in medicine for 25 years and none of this has come about. And I tried to integrate it, but it's just, you can't, change a system overnight. But I
Right.
think it's through language, through knowledge, through this kind of, recognizing that this chronic illness population is only growing. And the challenge is because we are so well resourced, we have so many opportunities, we have so much at our disposal, more than most people around the globe, right? Like we can do this test, that test, but how do we get to a place where people are able to manage themselves and
Yes.
right? Like
Yes.
how do we get to a sense of agency about it instead of a sense of helplessness?
Yes.
Because right.
Yeah, agency and
Just
empowerment, really, as you
mhm.
mentioned. So, as we close, we want to ask you a question that you would ask us or the audience, or something related to something that brings you to, this conversation, and something that you're curious about.
Yes, I love that. This is a great closing question.
Mhm.
And Dr. Simi, what you were saying with this population of chronically ill people is getting bigger. So how can we use our resources? I'm curious to hear what you two think. How do you think we can empower people to have more agency?
Mm.
Whoa.
So
I
many
think you
ways.
are
I
you are
mean,
already doing it right now in the
This is,
podcast.
first of all, can I just say also, Emily, power move? Like we asked you a question and then you turned it back onto both of us.
no, it's a great question. I think
You're
it's a
curious
shared.
about, yeah,
It's
it's
a
a
question that
shared.
we all kind of. I think you're seeing
Yeah.
the beauty of in your work, when patients are educated, when they're knowledge, when they're given when they've heard, when they're listened to, when they are, you know, not gaslighted,
Yeah.
as so many women get gaslit. Oh, it's
Mhm.
just stress. Oh, you got to just deal. It's just motherhood. Oh, it's, you're not doing it right, or what are you eating, or, there's all this, negativity in what women are doing wrong rather than what they're doing right. And I think once they hear that, oh, there is something wrong with my gut, but it's actually telling me something, and maybe, and it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Maybe I should be listening in. I don't know.
Mhm.
That's kind of what I feel is, once
Yeah.
patients become aware of their body and given that, hey, yeah, it's a good thing that this is happening.
Yeah.
Let's take it in that light, and then
Mhm.
Yeah.
suddenly they're like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, now I'm curious now. Why am I having this? Yeah, it's a good idea to listen
Yeah.
in. That would be
Yeah.
my answer.
That's a great answer. Listen to your body because it's trying to tell you something.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a great question because I think it speaks to also giving back power, because there's always been like this hierarchical sage on the stage, kind of
Mhm.
the knowledge holder, which was true before knowledge became more democratized through the internet, right? Now it's,
Mhm.
somebody with an internet connection and a, good knowledge of how to use it can reach their own diagnosis in ways that they couldn't before
Right.
and be very knowledgeable. And also with chronic illness, there's a story that builds up,
Mhm.
right? That there's a story that's being told. And I think, Alya and I, we both kind of look at it as like, okay, there's a story. We all have a story. Is it a functioning story, a well-functioning story? Have you metabolized it? Has it been made into something that you are proud of living into?
Mhm.
And with kind of like a sense of authenticity and, because it's like, yeah, if somebody had a life-changing illness and they're no longer going to be able to do the thing that they love doing, they're going to have to change their story. There's just no doubt about it,
Yeah.
And so, sometimes it's being alongside and also saying, hey, you get to direct the story and let me not take that agency away from you just
Mhm.
because I think I know better. Because I mean, that's the other thing we've seen in the hospital, right? Is like sometimes when push comes to shove, we're left with decisions which are worse and worse and worse, right? Like, too bad, the choices aren't very great.
Mhm.
And in those situations, who am I to say what the right choice is?
Right.
Especially to somebody who's suffering. But sometimes when people don't have control over their bodies, the one thing they have control over is the choice of what to do with
Absolutely.
their body, right? And how to be with it. And that relationship of like, when I'm ready, and also honoring that, because I think that honors the fact that there's a readiness aspect and there's an energy aspect and there's it means a lot. It takes a lot for me to ask for help. It's the other piece
Yeah.
of that is like when somebody's asking for help, it means a lot to them,
Yeah.
that trust and that always goes back to the relationship, the healer and the person seeking help. And I feel like if there's one thing we all share in our training is paying attention to that,
Yeah.
centering that. Yeah.
That was a
Yeah. How
great
about you?
question, Emily.
Yeah, Emily, how about you? Yeah, great question.
Well, and thank you both for answering. I feel bad because I thought that that's what I was supposed to do.
No, that's a nice way to take that question, because you can take that question any direction you want. So thank you for showing us that there's a different way to look even at that question.
Oh,
Because how can people find you? Can you just let us know where you're to be found?
absolutely. I love sharing information. As much as I can, share information and being aggressively helpful about sharing knowledge. So on my website, I've got the quiz. You can do the pattern type, and that is a fun way to start to decode the pattern. So website's qcnaturalhealth.com. And then every day, Monday through Friday, I'm posting a YouTube short on what's going on in the research right now. What are we seeing? And that's linked to my Instagram and Facebook, all QC Natural Health.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you both.
Education is the bedrock of healing, as we know, and we've learned so much. So thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you.
So,
This has been a joy.
this is the era of curiosity. Stay curious and keep asking those unasked questions. And I'd like to ask our audience, what questions do you have about the gut-brain axis, the nervous system, healing, yoga, or the connection between the stress and physical symptoms that you're seeing in your body? Have you ever noticed that your body's giving you some information, communicating with you that your mind wasn't fully aware of yet? So yeah, I'd love to hear more from our audience. Share your reflections and curious questions in the comments. Your curiosity may inspire even a future conversation on Too Curious MD. So thank you. Thanks for joining us on the Too Curious MD podcast. We hope today's episode inspired you to ask new questions and explore fresh perspectives. We challenge you to ask us those unasked questions that you're curious about in your medical practice, condition, health, and wellness.
If you enjoyed the podcast, don't forget to subscribe, share it with somebody just as curious, and leave us a review. It helps us keep the curiosity alive. Post or comment with a question or curious inquiry that you have and seek to explore or learn with us. Stay curious, and we'll see you next time.